Good evening, YouTube. This is Alec and Paul of Team APS. Before we get started today, I just want to apologize to all the people whose ears I may have hurt in my last video. I took out some time after that last video to really think about where I was at the time and reflect upon my actions. You just didn't deserve that. Your headphones didn't deserve that. Your neighbors didn't deserve that. Your parents didn't deserve that. So I really just want to just address the squad.
So in this video, we're going to be talking about the new archetypes that we are most excited for this year.
That's right, our favorite 7 coming up.
Yeah, and the reason why we're doing this is because now that we finally have the ban list, and now that
you.
Zoodiacs and Dracos and Dinos are out of the way, other decks can do things. So these are all archetypes that are coming out in Circuit Break.
Extreme Forces.
Yeah, and some Spirit Warriors, all that stuff. So we're going to be talking about those. Maybe not so much Extreme Forces, but
yeah, that's
the
a
other
little
two.
too far down the road.
So, the first one, and it's one that I'm actually really excited about, is Rocket Dragons.
The Rockets Dragons.
I think they're called Verit Dragons in the OCG in Japan, but
We used to call them bullets.
I think that was like a rough translation. So anyway, there are these dark dragon type monsters, and when they're targeted by a Link monster's effect, they can activate their effect, which destroys themselves. When they destroy themselves, they usually take something with them. They either destroy a monster, destroy a spell trap, negate an opponent's thing, and then during the end phase, if they were destroyed by a card effect, whether it's their own or anything else, Dark Hole, they summon another Rocket Dragon from the deck.
So if you're doing a Rocket Dragon player, then what they'll do is they'll North Korea you.
Yeah.
They'll just start lobbing rockets at you and.
Not quite, but it is really fun, and it's neat because it's sort of a Link strategy. It's Borlo Dragon is the Link monster that works best with them. It can target a monster, make it lose 500 attack and defense. Your opponent can't chain to that effect, but they can still chain their effects, and then it destroys them. They surge. They've got a few cool spells and traps. Squib Draw, you destroy one of your rockets. Draw 2 cards, and then they also will float in the end phase. And there's also a spell, I forget what it's called. It summons one. Quick Revolve. Yeah, Quick Revolve. You summon a rocket from your deck. It's a quick play spell, Quick Revolve. And you summon a rocket from your deck, and it gets destroyed in the end phase. So it's kind of like a Zoodiac combo, or barrage, which is neat. But
you get to do whatever you want with the monster,
or
you can just let it die.
I think that the only real flaw this deck has right now is maybe just sort of the fact that there aren't very many rockets. Only 3 of them come in this set.
And 3 cards don't make a deck. Just ask FA.
Yeah, so I think Extreme Force will further make this deck viable, but it can still use existing Dragon support, existing Dark support, makes use of a few different Link monsters, so pretty excited about it.
Our next deck is Altergeist.
Yes.
Now these are the these are spellcasters.
Yeah.
And they're all different attributes.
Yeah, and so the general strategy with them is they're actually just kind of like a float, a little bit of floating, a little bit of disrupting, a little bit of searching, so a little bit of everything. But the real ticker here is their continuous traps. So they are able to search these from the deck. They can also recycle them. And the traps are actually kind of where the disruption and protection for their own monsters comes into play.
So it can be a fragile deck, but once you let it get going,
if they've got a Link monster, it actually tributes the Altergeists that it points to. It can negate stuff. And I guess I forgot to mention the Altergeists, when they go to the grave, tend to have some sort of a floating effect as well. So it's really cool.
It's a bunch of really balanced monsters.
And being spellcasters, you can actually mix them pretty easily with Alistair and kind of the whole Invoked engine. They're all have different attributes, so it's easy to make, your Macabre, other things that aren't named Macabre. No one remembers those.
I know one's called Caligula.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Funny, he's like one of the less useful. Yes.
Alright. The next deck is Metafist. That is retrains of a bunch of kind of legacy monsters.
Old, dragon-based monsters.
Daedalus, Nephthys, somebody else.
Divine Dragon
Apocalypse. Wait.
I don't know what his name is anyway. But the way that they work is they kind of revolve around getting banished. So when you use, say, Gold Sarcophagus on them, Then they get banished, and during the next standby phase, they're able to activate a different, like some kind of an effect.
It affects.
Nephthys can return itself to the deck and search any of your other Metaphys cards.
Ooh.
Some of them get different effects when they're special summoned by a Metaphys monster's effect, whether it's like their own or another one.
Like Daedalus, when it's special summoned by a Metaphys effect, it'll banish all special summoned monsters.
Yeah, you know all about that, huh?
Yeah, it really hurt actually.
So the thing is, this strategy is a little bit slow until you consider the spells and trap supports that this deck has.
They have a field spell.
The field spell lets you summon them from the hand without tributing, which is nice, and also it lets them get banished and they come back, I think, in the standby phase. Then they've got a continuous spell that lets you banish them from the hand to draw. And then also, when they get banished, it can like decrease monsters' attack or switch their battle positions.
And then the continuous trap, right?
Yeah, the continuous trap lets you actually special summon your banished ones, and then they get banished later. So bringing them back is cool because then you have monsters and swarming, and then when they get banished later, that will trigger their effects. And finally, with that continuous trap, when one of your other Metaphys cards gets banished, you get to banish opponent's cards. It sounds really confusing, but the truth is, once it gets going, it just kind of reminds me of like Dark Magician.
Yeah, or Pendulum Magicians.
Yeah, it's this kind of like circle of just advantage, banishing. It works really well. I like it.
I guess one downside to mention is these monsters, they're all high level.
Yeah.
So you can brick. It's entirely possible.
It's not perfect, but I think it is a really interesting deck. The next one is Magical Musketeers. You're actually going to be building this, huh?
Oh, yeah. So Musketeers are a really cool deck. The monsters, they get effects when spell and traps are activated in the same column as them. And the monsters, they allow you to activate their spell and traps from the hand. Kind of like hand traps.
Really, really deadly. The monsters, when you use those spells and traps, they might search or special summon from, the grave. And then the spells and traps themselves are just basic disruption cards. Some removal, that sort of thing.
I guess the power of the deck is that it's unpredictable.
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of them. There's like 6 different monsters, 6 or 7, and they each have a spell or trap that reflects the weapon they have. Which, speaking of the weapon they have, I can't wait to see how bad the censorship
Maybe they
received.
just won't. Maybe they're just not going to censor any of them and they come straight through.
Well, I mean, remember, it's already been changed from Magic Bullet, so...
I mean, they change every name for no apparent reason.
Yeah, so
Speaking of name changes,
we've also got our next one that I'm building. So he's building Magical Musketeers. I'm going to be building the Weather Painters.
Oh, Weather Painters.
So these are really neat. This is going to be a really hard archetype to keep up with, I think, in play.
I wonder if it's harder to explain.
Both. So when they get banished, they're called Weather Painters. When the Weather Painter monsters are banished by a Weather Painter effect, to activate one of those effects, they can come back during the next standby phase. But the monsters themselves can't actually banish themselves normally.
Nope.
What you need is the spell and traps, which are the weather patterns.
There's plenty of them.
So they're continuous spells and traps. They kind of have some different ways to search them out of the deck and all. But basically, if you put a weather pattern down, it affects the monster in the zone in front of it and then the 2 adjacent to it. So kind of like a T-zone thing. And that gives those Weather Painter monsters the ability to banish themselves to activate some sort of a disruptive effect for your opponent. It might be removal, it might be, stopping searching, a discard, just kind of whatever.
And you might be thinking, well, why do I want all these Weather Painters on the field in the first place? Well, some of them actually have pretty useful continuous effects that you do want on the field.
And the coolest thing is that their boss monster, I believe it's Weather Painter Ariel, she's kind of like a herald of perfection. All the stuff that she points to, all the weathery she points to, gain the ability to banish themselves to negate any card or effect, and then of course they'll bring themselves back. So it's kind of like that Herald of Perfection thing where it just sits and just your opponent can't do anything. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be really cool. So next up is Crawlers, our Earth Insect kind of flip effect deck. I think of them as Spiders 2.0.
Extension of the sort of World Legacy series of monsters.
So the
They're
way,
all related.
Yeah, the way they work is they use flip effects to gain advantage, but they all float into They all float into
You get 2 more face down.
Yeah, you get 2 more Crawlers face down when you kill one Crawler is destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And they even have a Link monster, or no, he's an Xyz monster.
No, they have links. They've got a couple of different links.
They have a couple
2
of
them
links.
come in next set, and then 1 comes in Extreme Force, right?
Yeah, and the Xyz monsters kind of give them it's kind of different effects, toolboxy. If I don't say toolboxy. How would you put it?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, like, they can't be, I know they both have the ability of, like, not being destroyed by battle, protecting them from, like, that type of stuff, giving them attack boosts, and I think one of them lets all of your crawlers attack multiple times, and then the other one just gives them battle immunity.
So they give kind of simple effects that makes it more difficult for your opponent to get rid of your crawlers. But even those guys still float into 2 crawlers.
2 crawlers from the graveyard.
From the grave.
Yeah. So the regular crawlers get 2 more from the deck, and then the link monsters get them from the grave.
Which they should be in the grave because you link to make them. So
yeah. So it's kind of this little circle of like gaining a lot of advantage. It's cool too because you can run some existing insect support.
That's
Things
true.
that come to mind for me are like Doomdozer, you know, kind of as an easy boss monster. Beatron, it's a good one. But an interesting one is actually Wormbait, which is this old spell. Not that old, but if you have an insect monster, you get to summon 2 tokens that are just also like level 1 earth insects. And that's actually a really easy way to make some of their link monsters. Because one of their link monsters takes 2 crawlers, so you couldn't make that. The other one takes 2 insects, and the other one takes 2 earths. So those tokens that are free can make either the latter, and that's really, really cool. So I think that it's a deck that is better than World Chalice IMHO.
Speaking of World, remember you can also use existing World Legacy support cards.
Yeah, some of those work with them. They even have a field spell, like Shadows Creeping on the World Legacy or something.
Creeping.
So, yes. And the final one is Shadow 6 Samurai, which I think everybody's really excited for because we finally got Gateway to 1. So,
I'm not. I'm gonna come out and say it right now. I'm not excited. I knew many of 6 Sam players. I didn't like Shin. I didn't like Barky.
Man, I loved 6 Samurai so much. I don't actually care that much about this deck. No, I'm just joking. The Shadow 6 Samurai are basically a lot like the regular 6 Samurai. A lot of the same floating effects. A lot of the same, not floating effects. Swarming effects. They have the same protection as the old 6 Sams, except it's from the grave. So they can banish themselves from the graveyard to protect an existing 6 Samurai monster, which is way better than the old kind of style. It doesn't cost you card advantage. And it works pretty well with all the old 6 Sam stuff too.
And we wouldn't have too much to say about that except for the recent ban list.
Yeah, so I think this might actually be playable now. I think before a Gateway, it probably would have just been a neat rogue strategy, but I mean, Gateway really gives you a lot more plays and keeps up your advantage.
Gateway is searchable in 1,000 different ways.
So, it's like a gateway drug. Yeah.
Kind of a dark thing to say.
So those are the 7 decks that we're looking forward to the most for the rest of this year. Let us know what you guys are looking forward to. There's technically more stuff. There's more Vindreds and FAs.
Yeah, FA might finally become a deck.
So we're really excited about that. And Cyberse, if we're counting that, you know.
Yeah, that might be a sleeper that no one's really paying attention to.
So you could almost say this is like 10, but it's 7 because we want to be cool.
Different.
So yeah, that's it for the video. Hope you guys liked it. Let us know what decks you're looking forward to most. What are you gonna play?
Yeah, what are you gonna use in this great new adventure called Post Ban List?
Yeah. So thumbs if you like the video, subs if you loved the video.
Hit the notification bell to join the app squad.
Yes, you'll know every time I upload new videos, and that's very important because we have a pretty big giveaway coming up. More details on that a little bit later this week.
Can I enter?
Yeah, no.
Like, I don't even feel like they really deserve it. Like,
I think it's for the squad, not for us.
But it's so. I mean, come on, we're part of the squad.
More details later.
All right.
Subscribe so you don't miss those. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Pass turn.